everyone and welcome back. Today we're tackling one of the most frustrating tech problems, printers. Whether yours won't print, keeps jamming, or refuses to connect, we've all dealt with a printer headache or two at some point. But don't worry, by the end of this video you'll have some easy troubleshooting steps to get things working again. Printers may seem complicated, but the most common issues can be fixed with a few simple steps anyone can do. We're going to go over how to get your printer back up and running, improve print quality, and fix connection issues. If you're still having trouble after trying these fixes, leave a comment below and we'll do our best to help you. Alright, let's get started with the basics, because sometimes the simplest fix is the one we overlook. Before diving into troubleshooting, let's make sure we've covered the basics. Many printer issues are caused by small things that are easy to miss, so it's always a good idea to check these out first. The first is power and connections. First, make sure the printer is actually turned on. It sounds obvious, but sometimes the power cable can get knocked loose or the printer might be in sleep mode. If you're using a wired printer, check the USB cable is securely connected to both the printer and the computer. And sometimes just touching that little light up screen that your printer may have may wake it up. If it's a wireless printer, make sure it's connected to the right Wi-Fi network. Next is paper and ink levels. First, check the paper tray. Make sure there's paper loaded correctly and that it isn't jammed or misaligned. Also, check your ink or toner levels. Some printers stop printing altogether when they're low on ink, even if they still have some left. If your printer has a small screen, it may show an alert if ink levels are low. Next common issue is default printer selection. That's when your computer might be trying to send a print job to the wrong printer. If you've connected to multiple printers in the past, your computer might still be defaulting to the old one. To check this, go into your computer's printer settings and make sure that the correct printer is selected as the default, and when you go to print, make sure you select the correct printer. If everything looked fine but the printer still isn't working, try the old turn it off and turn it back on again trick. Restart both your printer and your computer. This clears out any minor glitches that may be interfering with printing. I can't tell you how many times that's solved my issue. Once you've checked these basic steps, try printing again. If it's still not working, don't worry. We've got more troubleshooting steps coming up. Next, let's talk about what to do if your printer refuses to print at all. Alright, so you've checked the basics, your printer is on, connected, and has enough paper and ink, but still won't print. Don't worry, this happens a lot and there are a few things you can do to fix it. First things first, let's take a look at that printer queue. Sometimes print jobs get stuck, especially if a previous job failed or was interrupted. When that happens, your printer won't process a new print request. To fix this, go into your computer's printer settings. You'll find that under the settings or gear icon. Find the print queue and clear any pending jobs. Once you've done that, try printing again. Next, let's make sure your printer and computer are actually communicating. If you're using a wired printer, double check the USB cable is properly connected. If you're using a wireless printer, make sure it's connected to the correct Wi-Fi. If your printer has a small display, it may show a Wi-Fi connection symbol. If the connection looks weak or unstable, try restarting both your printer and router. A simple reset may fix many connection issues. Next, you might want to run a printer troubleshooter. If you're still having trouble, your computer has a built-in troubleshooting tool that can help. On Windows, go into Settings, then Devices, then Printers and Scanners. Click on your printer and run the troubleshooter. If you're on a Mac, go to System Preferences, select the printers and scanners, and try removing and re-adding the printer. These tools can automatically detect and fix some common printing issues. If your printer still won't print after clearing the queue and checking the connections, the issue might be with the Print Spooler. This is a small background service that your computer uses to manage print jobs and sometimes gets stuck, preventing anything from printing. Here's how to restart it. The first method is to use the Services menu. Press the Windows key and the R button to open the Run dialog box. Inside the Run dialog box, type services.msc and hit enter. This will open up the services menu. Scroll down and find Print Spooler on the list. Right-click and select Restart. If the restart isn't available, select Stop, wait a few seconds, and then select Start. Try printing again. Another way to restart the spooler is to use the command prompt. If you prefer the command prompt where the services window isn't responding, you can restart the spooler manually. First, click the Start menu and type CMD, then right-click on command prompt and select Run as Administrator. Type the following command and press Enter. Net stop spooler. Once the service has been stopped, type the next command and press Enter. Net start spooler. Restarting the Print Spooler can fix the print jobs and other printing issues. If this solves the problem but it keeps happening, you may need to update your printer driver or clear old print jobs permanently in the spooler folder. Next, you might want to check out your printer's drivers. Printers rely on software called drivers to communicate with your computer. If a printer driver is outdated or corrupted, it might not work properly. Go to the manufacturer's website and download the latest driver for your specific printer model. This is especially important if you recently updated your computer's operating system. At this point, your printer should be working again. If not, let's move on to one of the more common and most frustrating issues, paper jams. Nothing is more annoying than a paper jam, and it always seems to happen when you're in a rush. Fortunately, fixing a paper jam usually is pretty simple if you follow the right steps. The first thing you need to do is to turn off your printer. Before you do anything, turn off the printer. This prevents the rollers from moving while you're trying to remove the paper jam, which can help avoid causing further damage. Next, you need to gently remove the paper. Carefully open the printer's access panel and gently pull out the jammed paper. Always pull according to the direction the paper was feeding to avoid damaging the rollers. If you yank it backwards, you could tear the paper or misalign the internal parts. Next is to check for torn pieces. Even if the paper is out, there might still be small torn pieces stuck inside. These tiny scraps can cause more jams later on, so take a flashlight and check the inside of the printer. If you see anything stuck, and carefully remove it with tweezers. Finally, make sure the paper is loaded correctly. Sometimes paper jams happen because the paper wasn't loaded properly or the printer is grabbing multiple pieces of paper at once. First, before printing, make sure your paper is stacked neatly in the tray and not overloaded. Also check that you're using the correct paper type. Some printers can be picky about what paper they'll accept. Once you've cleared out the jam and reloaded the paper correctly, turn the printer back on and try printing again. If you're still having trouble, there might still be other issues causing the jam, like dirty rollers or worn out parts. Most printers have a maintenance mode that lets you clean the rollers. Check your printer settings for that option. Now that we've covered how to fix a paper jam, let's move on to another frustrating issue, poor print quality or streaky prints. So you may have finally got your printer working, but now the printouts look terrible. Maybe they're faded, streaky, or smudged. Don't worry, this is a common problem and usually an easy to fix one. Run the printer's cleaning cycle. Most printers have a built-in cleaning cycle that helps clean out clogged printer heads. If you're seeing streaks or missing lines near your prints, go into your printer settings and look for print head cleaning or maintenance. Run the cleaning cycle once and try printing again. If the print still looks bad, you may need to run the cleaning cycle a second time. Just be careful. This process uses up ink, so don't overdo it. Another thing to do is to check the ink or toner levels. If your prints are faded or patchy, your ink or toner might be low. Some printers stop printing altogether when the ink gets too low, but others will keep going when the print quality suffers. Check your printer's display settings on your computers to see if it's time for a refill. If you're using a laser printer, shake the toner cartridge gently from side to side. Sometimes the toner settles inside, and this can help even it out. Another thing you need to do is make sure you're using the right paper type. Believe it or not, the paper type can make a big difference. Cheap, thin paper can cause smudging, and glossy or specialty paper needs to be set correctly in your printer settings to avoid printing errors. If your printer allows it, check the printer settings and select the right paper type before printing. Once you've checked all these, print a test page. If the quality is still bad, check your ink cartridges because they may need to be cleaned, or your print heads may need to be manually cleaned. Check your printer's manual for detailed instructions. Now let's talk about a frustrating thing that happens way too often when your printer won't connect to Wi-Fi. Wireless printers are great when they work, but when they don't, it can be incredibly frustrating. If your printer keeps disconnecting or won't connect to Wi-Fi at all, here's what to try. First is to restart your router and printer. Before doing anything complicated, restart both your router and your printer. Turn them off, wait about 30 seconds because sometimes power can stay within the device, then turn them on again. Sometimes a simple reset fixes all the issues. Next is to check your Wi-Fi signal strength. If your printer is too far from your router, it may have a weak signal. Try moving your printer closer to your router or using a Wi-Fi extender if needed. Some printers have a network or signal strength option in their settings. Check to see if that signal is strong enough. Another thing to do is reconnect the printer to Wi-Fi. If restarting didn't work, try reconnecting the printer to Wi-Fi manually. This usually involves going into your printer settings, selecting the Wi-Fi setup, and choosing your network. Make sure you're entering the correct Wi-Fi password. One wrong letter or number can cause a failed connection. Finally, the thing to do is to update your printer firmware. Just like computers, printers get software updates that fix bugs and improve performance. If your printer keeps disconnecting, check the manufacturer's website for firmware updates and follow their instructions to install them. At this point, your printer should be back online. If it still won't connect, you may need to try a wired connection using a USB cable as a temporary solution. Now let's talk about one of the most confusing parts of troubleshooting, dealing with error messages. Sometimes printers throw out confusing error messages that don't give you a clear idea about what's wrong. Here's what you can do if your printer gives you an error and it won't work properly. First, look up the error code. If your printer has a display screen, it might show an error code like E04 or B200. These codes vary by manufacturer, but you can usually find out what they mean by checking your printer's manual or searching online. Just type in the brand name and error code into Google and you'll find a solution. Next is to try a printer reset. Sometimes the easiest fix is to reset the printer. Turn it off, unplug it for about a minute, then plug it back in and turn it on again. This clears out temporary errors and can help resolve minor glitches. Next is to check the printer sensor issues. Sometimes printers mistakenly think there's a paper jam when there isn't. If you're getting that type of error about a jam, even after checking it for stuck paper, try removing and resetting the paper tray. Some printers also have small sensors inside that may need cleaning. Check your manual for instructions. If you've tried everything and the error still won't go away, it might be time to reach out to your printer manufacturer's support team. They might have specific troubleshooting steps or even a repair option if your printer is still under warranty. By now, we've covered almost every major printer issue, but what if your printer just keeps giving you trouble? Let's talk about when it might be time to replace it. At this point, if you've tried all the troubleshooting steps and your printer is still giving you problems, it might be time to ask yourself, should I just replace it? Sometimes fixing an older printer costs more time and money than it's worth. Signs that it's time for a new printer. If your printer constantly jams or gives error messages even after troubleshooting, it might be worn out. Some printers are cheap up front but expensive to maintain. If you're spending a fortune on ink, it may be worth upgrading to a more efficient model. Older printers may not work well with newer computers or operating systems. If your printer doesn't have an updated driver, it might be time for replacement. If you print a lot, upgrading to a laser printer may save money in the long run. If you work remotely, a printer with a wireless and mobile printing option could make life easier. If your printer is more than 5 years old and constantly giving you trouble, a replacement might be the best option. But before you buy a new printer, do a little research and find the right printer for your needs, whether it's an inkjet for casual printing, a laser printer for high volume jobs, or an all-in-one with scanning and fax capabilities. My printer says it's connected to Wi-Fi, but my computer can't find it. What do I do? That's a good question, Lisa. If your printer is connected to Wi-Fi but your computer isn't detecting it, try these steps. First, restart both your printer and computer. I can't tell you how many times this has fixed my common errors with printing. Second, go to your printer settings on your computer and remove the printer, then re-add it. Sometimes you might need to restart your computer between re-adding it just to reset everything in your computer. Third is to make sure your computer and printer are on the same Wi-Fi network. Sometimes printers connect to a guest network instead. And fourth is to check if your printer has a static IP address. If not, assigning it one can help keep the connection stable. If none of these work, try temporarily connecting your printer with a USB cable to see if the computer recognizes it. Let me know if this helps. I replaced my ink cartridges, but my printer still says they're empty. How do I fix this? That's frustrating, James. This happens sometimes when the printer doesn't recognize the new cartridges. Try these fixes. First, remove the cartridge and reinstall it. Make sure it clicks into place. Second, turn off the printer for a few minutes, then turn it back on. It's a cliche, but sometimes it works. Third is to check for protective tape. Some cartridges come with a small plastic strip that's covering the ink nozzle and needs to be removed. Fourth is to run a printer head cleaning cycle from the printer settings. And fifth, if you're using a refilled or third-party cartridge, sometimes your printer will not recognize them. Some brands block non-original cartridges, so check your printer's manual to see if that's an issue. If it still doesn't work, try resetting your printers to factory settings. Let me know if this worked out for you. Why does my printer keep printing blank pages? That's a great question, Karen. A few things could be causing this. First, check your ink or toner levels. Even if they're not empty, low ink can cause blank prints. Sometimes a specific color in your ink cartridge runs out before the others. Next, run a nozzle cleaning cycle. Clogged print heads can stop ink from flowing properly. Make sure that you're using the correct paper setting. If your printer thinks you're printing on a glossy paper, but you're using regular paper, it may not apply ink properly. Fourth, try printing a test page. If it's still blank, your ink cartridges may be dried out or defective. Let me know if what happens after trying these steps. I keep getting a paper jam, but there's no paper stuck inside. What now? That's annoying, Emma. If you've already checked for stuck paper, try these. First, turn off your printer and unplug it. Then check the paper tray again. Sometimes tiny scraps of paper are hidden inside. Second, check the rollers. If they're dirty or worn out, they may not pull the paper through properly. Some printers have a roller cleaning option in the settings. Third, make sure the paper is loaded correctly. Misaligned or overfilled trays can trigger paper jam errors. Fourth, try using a different brand of paper. Some printers are picky about the paper thickness, and low quality paper can cause feeding issues. If it keeps happening, let me know what model you have and I'll see if there's any model specific fixes. Why does my printer print really slowly? That's a great question, David. Printers can slow down for a few reasons. First, check your print settings. If you're printing to high quality or best mode, switch to standard or draft mode for faster printing. Use a wire connection instead of Wi-Fi. Wireless printing can sometimes be slower, especially with large documents. Update your printer drivers. Outdated software can slow things down. If it's a network printer, try restarting your router. A weak connection can cause printing to take longer. If it's still slow, what kind of printer are you using? Some older inkjet models naturally take longer than newer ones. My printer used to work fine, but now my computer won't recognize it at all. What happened? Hey Mike, this can be caused by a few things. First is to try a different USB port or cable if you're using a wired connection. Second is to reinstall the print drivers. First, go to the printer manufacturer's website and then download the latest version. Next is to check Windows or Mac options. Sometimes a system update can cause compatibility issues, and reinstalling the drivers helps. Fourth is to remove and re-add the printer in your computer settings. Sometimes I restart the printer in between the add and removal process to make sure the computer is completely cleared out of that printer. If none of these work, let me know what kind of printer you're using, and I'll try to troubleshoot further. Should I get an inkjet or laser printer? Great question, Sarah. It depends on what you need. Inkjet printers are better for color printing, photos, and home use, but ink can dry out if you don't use it often. Laser printers are better for text-heavy documents and office use since toner lasts longer and prints faster. If you only print occasionally and need color, inkjet is fine, but if you print a lot of black and white documents, a laser printer might be a better investment. I keep getting low ink warning, but my prints still look fine. Can I keep printing? Yes, Chris. Many printers warn you about low ink way before you actually need it. You can keep printing until you start seeing fading or streaks in your prints. If you print mostly black and white documents, check your printer settings and change them to grayscale or draft mode, and you can keep the ink lasting longer. Just keep an extra cartridge on hand for when you finally does run out. Printers can be frustrating, but most issues have simple fixes. Let's do a quick recap. If your printer won't print, check the connection, clear the print queue, and update the drivers. If you have a paper jam, turn off the printer, gently remove the paper, and check for small scraps left behind. If your printer quality is bad, run a cleaning cycle, check the ink levels, and make sure that you're using the right paper. If your printer won't connect to Wi-Fi, restart your router, move the printer closer, and reconnect it manually. If you're getting an error message, look up the error code, try resetting the paper, and check for sensor issues. And finally, always try restarting both the printer and your computer. Sometimes the simplest fix is the correct one. If you found this video helpful, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next tech tips. And if your printer is still giving you troubles, leave a comment below with your specific issue, and we'll do our best to help. Thanks for watching, and happy printing.